Hi and welcome to PeppeTalk. I'm Peppe and let's talk. This week we're gonna talk about what it's like moving from one continent to another, about dreaming big as a kid and then pursuing the big dream. Does it always turn out the way we think? Or which challenges might we bump into on the way? And with us this week, we have Elisa.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm really excited for this. How are you?
I'm good as well, and I'm also very curious because we know each other a bit, I would say, but now it's like I will probably get to know you even more because of the topic that we will dive into. Would you say so as well?
Yes, for sure. I was thinking about it, and I really think it's a great opportunity to get to know each other even more.
Right? But for all our listeners, who are you?
Well, I'm Elisa. I'm 29 years old, turning 30 very soon. I'm originally from Mexico, but I moved to Vienna, Austria around 7 years ago. And now I live here. I'm really happy. I live with my partner. And yeah, that's I think that's a little small general way of describing who I am.
No, but it's often like who am I? Like it's a very big question. And I think what we are going to talk about today, which is about moving to another country, becoming part of the society, the pressure, the challenges, but also all the wonderful opportunities that you have. And this is a topic that I have been having several times during my podcast history. And what I love about it is that no story is the same. Because even if you come from the same place and you move to another same place, it will never be the same. But I want you to bring us back to when you lived in Mexico, when you grew up, what was it like, and how were you as a person?
Well, I had a really happy childhood. My parents were really young when they had me. They were basically teenagers, so that was something that always stick with me. I was always a very extroverted child. I always loved to dance, to make new friends. I was always wanting to learn new things. I really love having friends around, spending lots of time with my sister to play with her. Um, just being around people, that was always something that I really loved the most. And even though my parents were quite young, they always tried to gave me and my sister the best that they could. So I only have good memories. I have to say that I feel really fortunate that I have really good memories about it. Um, but when I started growing up, I always realized that I wanted something more. I wanted to get to know the world. I wanted to travel. But of course, that was something that it was not so easy since, coming from a young couple, of course, my parents were focused on giving us educations and so on. Traveling looked like a really far away dream. I always remember that my parents would say, "Yeah, when you grow up, you will be able to do it." And in my mind, growing up meant, okay, so maybe when I'm, I don't know, 30, 40, then I will finally be able to do it. But I was always aware that, okay, if I want to make that happen, I need to find a way. And as I said, that always stayed with me, like, how would it be to travel, to get to know other countries? So I think I created that idea of my own, and I just wanted to really make it happen. And well, it eventually happened. It was really a surprise. But yeah, altogether I was really a happy kid, and always, yeah, looking for more.
But when you were dreaming about this traveling, did you have specific places in mind? And how did you gain this inspiration? Was it that you were like looking on YouTube videos or like, okay, social media came later on, but how did you find out about these specific places that you dreamt about?
I think it was mostly from my mom. My mom always encouraged me and my sister, to get to know a bit more in general about the world. For example, my parents, they just speak Spanish, but we used to go to like a private school. So of course, at school, I would learn, of course, even a bit more. I would learn English, and I think I don't know, as far as I remember, when English became really something that I really wanted to excel, I thought, okay, maybe I can use this to travel when I go, I don't know, somewhere else. And of course, on TV, movies, I was always thinking, oh my God, I would love to, to go there or do that. But as I said, it always felt more like a dream, like something really far away, not impossible, but in terms of money, I knew that I had to have it to make it happen. Um, it always felt good, to dream about it, but for sure, it felt something that it was not gonna be easy to achieve. But I have to say, all those ideas came mostly from my mom, and because I think it was something that she would have liked to do at some point in her life, and she always tried to really put those dreams in me and my sister, but not like in a negative way, but in a positive way. And I think that's why I was always so excited, with the idea.
So, since you were thinking, like, oh, maybe when I'm 30 or 40, and as you told us a few minutes ago, you're 29. So, it happened way earlier. Tell us about that process.
Well, I think everything started when I was in high school. As I said, I was really fortunate to be able to go to private schools. So, of course, I was able to get to know people from other countries. We had lots of people from Europe or from the USA, coming to Mexico to live abroad. Um, and back at that time, I met a girl from Austria. I was 15, 16 years old when I was in high school. And of course, I remember no one knew about Austria. Everyone would always confuse it with Australia. So it was always really fun, to see the people always asking, where Australia with the kangaroos? And I became really close with that girl. And I think, of course, as a young girl, and living in Europe, she had already the opportunity to travel all around. And of course, she shared all those experiences with me, all those travels and so on. And I think I became even more eager to be able to do that. But of course, you're 15, 16 years old. How can you do that, living in Mexico? So after meeting each other, we became really close. And one day she just put the idea into my mind, like why you don't try to really pursue your dream. There's many ways of doing it, and you don't have to, for example, go and study abroad. You can maybe try to do certain programs, and the au pair idea came into the picture. I made my research about how it was, how that worked around Europe, how what I needed to do to be able to actually apply and to get a family. And I really start looking seriously into different options. I started writing right away families, trying to really find the perfect family that will really suit me. um, and everything happened so fast from one day to another. I found a family, and then I traveled to to Austria. And that's how the whole story started.
But what were your emotions, and also within your family, that now you were about to pursue this dream of yours and maybe of your mom? And what kind of emotions were there?
It was, have to say, those were hard times, because when I decided, okay, I'm gonna do it, I was, I think, in my late 18s, 19. I decided that I wanted to do that before going into university. So of course that was a big topic, from for my family. Of course, they wanted me to pursue a career first and then to travel the world because that was the plan. When I would be an adult, I would be able to do it before having a career, before working. But I just had, I couldn't just let go of the idea, okay, yeah, when I'm older, maybe I will not even have the time. And life in Mexico is quite different than in Europe. And I knew that if I didn't take the opportunity right in that moment, maybe later I was not going to be able to do it after. And of course, it was a huge topic. It was not easy for my mom to really let me. Of course, as a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I would still ask for her permission. Can I do it? Is it fine if I do it? And yeah, it was kind of messy, totally emotional, lots of no, something will happen, and what if, she never got to travel anywhere. She really didn't know so much about the world, and I can imagine to think, okay, my girl wants to go so far away with I don't know who. What if something happens? I can just not go and rescue her. Eventually, I think it helped a lot that my friend, even though she was already back in Austria, we would have, talks with my mom, and the possibility of, okay, was always open. If something happens, she can always come to me and my family, to the family of my friend here in Austria. So I think that gave my mom a bit of peace of mind to know that I was not going to be 100% alone. But I think, like, I never thought how much impact and this whole process was going to have on me and the reality of it. In my mind, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a plane and then I will arrive there and everything is going to be fine. But of course, it was not like that. It was totally different from what I expected. So yeah, it was a lot of emotions involved, and it was not really an easy decision.
But then you came to Austria. You had heard so much about this place from your friend, and I guess it sounded like an interesting place to live and explore. What was it like coming to Austria? Was it as you expected, like the country to be and the culture?
I mean, my first time, I think I would never forget it. And now thinking back, I really think that I tried to not think so much because it was so emotional. I remember that I arrived to the airport, to a huge airport. I had no idea what was going to happen. This, stranger picked me up because, of course, I didn't know the family in person yet. And I remember it was a huge man, 2 meters tall, and I felt so little. And I was like thinking, am I really gonna go like alone with someone that I had no idea who he is? And I will never forget, like, the first time, like, I went outside from the airport. I just saw, I don't know, so many cars, like a huge thing, and I was like, "What is this?" It was totally different from my city, from where I know. And then we started driving, and I started seeing like so many mountains and such, and I was like, "What is this?" It was like from a movie. It was really I never pictured that in my mind. Of course, I Google, I tried to inform myself and so on beforehand, but the feeling itself, it was something that I never experienced in my life. It was like experiencing things for the first time. It was something totally different, and I was just blown away, on how, I don't want to say how big the country was because, of course, I was not traveling around, but the first impression was like, oh my God, this is huge. This is something totally new for me.
But how were the people? Not just the family, but also like getting to know your new neighborhood and everything. You're from abroad. Did you feel welcome? Because, for example, Swedish people have, how to say, a reputation of being a bit like closed, not so very like open. But if you get to know Swedish people, they are very warm and welcoming. But how are Austrian people?
Of course, when I first came, the only people that I got to know was this family, and unfortunately, it was not the best experience. They were really, of course, close-minded, and we really didn't discuss the terms of how my job was gonna be beforehand. And when I arrived there, I realized that they wanted something different, not just an au pair. And I think that had a kind of like a negative impact on me because it was not what I was, you know. They were living really far away in a mountain, so I never got to know the neighbors. I really felt alone, and I think the transition was not as good as I would have expected because I felt really alone the whole time. And they were the only people that I had, that I could talk with. And of course, if I was not feeling 100% good, the whole experience was not nice for me. Um, but after being with some days with them, I talked with them and I decided that maybe it was better to change the family. That we talk, and I realized, okay, this is not what I wanted, as an au pair, like as to having the experience. And I was also not fulfilling their requirements. And then I moved for a month with the family of my friend. Um, and then I started searching for new families because that was the plan, to come here to be an au pair. There, I was able to get to know more about the people, the culture. Of course, it was a big adjustment. As you said, I think maybe Austrian people have uh, lots of similarities with Austrian people. At first, you would think, oh, they're mad or they're really, close-minded. But that you get to know them, you can see that they can have an open mind and they can be warm. But it's just not easy for them to trust. They will just not see you and give you a big hug and just right away want to talk with you. That was something that it was really hard for me because in Mexico we're the total opposite. We will know someone, and after 5 minutes, we would just tell that person the story of our life, and we would just be best friends. And of course, here in Austria was the total opposite. Um, of course, people are not very expressive, and I'm very expressive, but I always try to not take that in a negative way. I always try to really okay to take it not personally and to also understand. I'm not in my country; it's a different culture, and I need to adjust. But as I say, that adjustment, of course, took a bit of time. But I was always really lucky that I found always the right people. I was always really feeling really welcoming and surrounded by love. So I think that's something that I consider myself really, really fortunate, because sometimes not every person has the same.
As you said, you didn't have the best experience with the first family. It was a very big change in that sense. That could also have made you, I want to go home. But just the fact that you still stayed with your friend's family and you gave like the country a second chance in that sense, like looking at you now, you must be very happy that you did. Were you having any doubts that you would move back?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think when I realized, okay, this is not the place for me, I was extremely afraid. And unfortunately, really didn't have a support system. Since I realized that when these situations come to place, the program cannot really do anything for you. And you have to be the one looking for the new families. You have to be the one talking with the current family. So, of course, that was really scary. Back at the time, I did not communicate that with my parents because I thought, okay, what can they do? And that was one of the biggest fears of my mother, you know, that I was going to be in a situation where I was going to feel not good, not welcome, or, you know, like that. But I really tried to manage everything by myself. And as I said, I was really lucky that the family of my friend was there for me, that there was a door open for me to just stay with them, even though I also never met them before. Um, I felt the support. And of course, I one of the first thoughts that came into my mind was, okay, should I go home? But I did not want to give up. I really want to have the experience. I needed to live the experience. And I wanted to have a positive experience. I really, that was one of the most important things in my mind. I need to make this happen. And of course, if it didn't work out, I was going to go back. But I was really resilient and I found a second family, and then I moved near Vienna, and yeah, the feeling was really nice to know that even though I didn't have a nice start, I did not give up, and I just continued to look for a way of staying.
And now you've been there for a while and you have had a lot of experience since that second family to where you are today. What has happened all these years? And I'm also thinking about the language. Did you know German from the start, like back in Mexico, or did you learn it in Austria?
Before coming with the first family, one of the requirements to be au pair, to get to have your residence permit, or your working permit, you need to have a certain level of German. So I took, a course in a school in Mexico. Of course, when I was learning, I thought, oh, this is so easy. I will be able to speak German when I come to Austria. But once I was here, I realized, oh God, I cannot speak this language. So it was really hard. But I was always really interested in the language, and I thought, okay, maybe there's a way that I can make it better. Um, and I was just always really curious, always trying to hear conversations from other people. As an au pair, you are able to take German courses, so that was something really positive because I was able to also take extra courses to keep learning. Um, but of course, it was not an easy process. I mean, I can say that it took me maybe around 5 years to finally feel comfortable with the language. But actually, it happened a bit more after the second family, because also the family realized that they did not want an au pair anymore. So I was back at square one. When that happened, it was really one of the worst days of my life because it took me so long, or like not so long, but I put so much effort to find that family. And then after 2 months, 3 months, I needed to find a new family. So, of course, my German courses were paused. I felt again, oh God, what am I going to do? Since I was already too far away from the family of my friend, I just couldn't just go back, because, time was really, really important. You have a certain time to find another family, otherwise, you have to go back to your country. So I was really lucky and I found a third family that they were looking for an au pair, and they were based near Vienna. And I just said yes. They said yes. We met and we arranged everything, and I was able to move with them. And I think my life, my whole experience started there with them, um, because finally I felt, oh, I have more stability. I had a really nice routine with the kids. I had lots of free time. I started again my German courses, and then in during that time, I met my partner, David, and I think that really changed the whole picture. Of course, I was never expecting that I was gonna fall in love here. My plan was just to come to learn the language, to have this experience, to be able to travel around. Since of course it's easy to travel from Austria to other countries, but that was, I think, kind of like the surprise of this whole process. And I had no idea what to expect from the relationship, anything. But still, I think like everything happened for a reason. I think I had all these challenges because I really needed to meet this person. And I think really everything happened the way it should have happened.
Wow, like finding love, it's what you like, the least what you expect when you do an adventure like this, but also the most wonderful thing that can happen. But also, it puts everything on the table even more. Like, okay, now you have found love. When did you know you wanted to stay?
I think I remember quite well because, as I said, there's so many cultural differences between Austria and Mexico. I had no idea what to expect from this person. In Mexico, even in relationships, it's different how you manage everything, and I just did not want to push him to be with me, with someone that lives so far away that was just gonna stay for some months. I never wanted to have to talk with him about what is going to happen with us because I said, we are 2021, we are so young, we live with our parents. What can I ask for him? That's something that I really wasn't able to do. And of course, when it came to the point, okay, I need to go soon, we had to have the talk. Okay, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna manage this? Do we really want to try this long distance relationship? Should I finish my studies? Are you gonna finish your studies? When are we gonna meet again? It was something that it felt so impossible to actually achieve. We said, okay, we actually really love each other. We realized that we fell in love, and we said, okay, we have to try. We have to find a way of being together. The plan was that I was gonna go to university in Mexico. He was gonna wait for me. We were gonna travel, to see each other. But then we realized, oh, we're talking about 4 years or something like that. So, of course, the fact that we wanted to try was something, but the reality was another total different topic. Back at the time, many intrusive thoughts would come, into my mind. What if he meets someone else? What if he gets tired of waiting? All these type of thoughts. But after moving back to Mexico, after my au pair contract ended, he came 2 months later or 3 months later to meet my family and to see where I come from. And I think that was the turning point where he realized, and I also realized, oh, we actually want to be together. We want to try this. And I think we had to grow really, really fast after that because we started looking, okay, how am I able to stay in Austria? As I said, it was something really hard. We were back at square one because I couldn't be au pair again, and that was not really an option anymore. So I think one of the easiest options was to come as a student, and that's what our plan was, that I would apply actually here to university. So that meant that I was not gonna apply in Mexico, so I was gonna pause, you know my studies. So that was a really huge decision because, again, my parents were against it. They thought, okay, but what if it doesn't work out? You're gonna just lose years of your life and then you're gonna come back here with nothing. So it was really something so complicated, because I was, between two worlds. I want to be there with him, but I also want to make my parents happy, to make them proud. So I was constantly under stress. I was crying a lot. I was constantly missing, the life that I had here when I was au pair, constantly missing him, but at the same time having many doubts at the same time. Should I leave my country? Should I leave everything that I know, my family, my sister? But at the end, we said, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for you because I want to be with you. And eventually, my life will be better if I'm there with you. Um, at the end, we realized that this idea of applying for the student visa, it was something good, but we had several issues, with the paper. So it started really complicated. And then the fear came, oh God, what if it doesn't work? Then I cannot really start then the school there. the university there. So we decided to do something really spontaneous. We decided to register our relationship. That was one of the easiest ways to give me the opportunity to study, to work here, and to stay with him without the pressure of getting married. We were really young, so I did not want to put him through that just to get into a marriage so I could stay here in Mexico. Marriages are something really important. So I wanted um, to give it a true meaning. I did not want it to rush the process just because I needed to stay in Austria. So that's why we thought, okay, this is the better option for us, and let's try it.
And okay, so registering the relationship, what does that really mean? Because as you said, you are not married, you are a couple, or how, or is it that you live together? Like what does it actually mean to register the relationship?
Well, Austria has a very structured system. And it's basically like a marriage because legally speaking, we have the same rights and responsibilities as a married couple, but it just changes kind of like the name. It was really funny because we thought we're just gonna sign, we're gonna bring the papers, and everything is gonna be fine. But we actually went to the courthouse. We had a ceremony, and we were so shocked and so afraid because we thought, "Oh my God, are we getting married and we don't know?" It was really, really something funny, something that I will never forget. But as I said, basically, it's almost the same. It, also, speaking of terms of the permit, of the resident permit, it's even the same name. But we're not married. We are in a partnership. If you make the translation, it's actually a partnership. And of course, you have to live together with the person. Both or the person that lives in Austria has to have a job. There are really several requirements, a huge list of requirements, but we were able to fulfill them. We were really lucky that my partner had a job, so it was a complicated process because it was something new for us. Lots of papers that I brought from Mexico, I had to translate them. It was really a whole process, and I think when I was already here in Austria, after making that decision, we thought, okay, I could stay already, but we didn't have enough time, so I had to go back to Mexico, wait for my permit. So that was really, we were devastating because of that, because we thought, oh God, what if they never reply? What if they don't give me the yes? And of course, just the fact of going back to Mexico for me meant something bad is going to happen. So I think the waiting was really something horrible, if I'm honest. But eventually, they gave us a positive answer, and then again, back to Austria to finally start, the life that we were longing, having. And we were really confused because we said, okay, now what? I applied to the university actually, but I decided that it was better to keep learning the language. So I was learning 2 years German at the university because I knew that I was not going to be able to find a job right away if I was not able to be fluent in the language. So I think that was a great decision, to just go to the uni to have this little experience of being a student. But I think I was constantly feeling that, oh God, something is gonna happen, and then COVID came, and that was another topic. I think made everything more difficult.
But so you have this partnership, if we call it like that. Do you still need to fulfill all these things now when you have lived there several years? Or does it transform into something else after a couple of years? How does that work?
You always need to renovate your residence permit. It's not a permit that I will have just forever. Once I you get the permit for the first time, you need to renovate the permit in the second year, and then in the third year, and then you get a permit for 3 years, and then after those 3 years you have to renovate the permit again 3 years, and so on. It's something that I need to constantly have to renovate. Of course, I have to fulfill all the requirements now that I've been here for several years. Of course, it's better if I have a job, and you have to have the same requirements as you did the first time. So basically, a place where you live with the person, a job, a certain income, the language. That's something really important. You need to have, after several years, certain level of German. Really, paperwork, confirmations, many things. I think now I'm used to it, so I'm not afraid anymore. Before, I used to go to the appointments and feel really anxious. I would take my partner with me because I was just so insecure. I always thought, oh, if I don't say the right thing, maybe they will deny my permit. But I think that was really mostly in my mind because I didn't felt maybe good enough, because I was not able to speak the language. But once I felt confident enough, everything really changed. And I always said, okay, it's just paperwork, it's just bureaucracy. If I have all the papers, why would they deny me the right to stay here? If I take what they need, what they're asking for, there's no reason that they have to say no. So now, even though it sounds like it's a really tiring process, and it is, I have to be honest, it really is. And of course, every person has a different story, every person has different experiences. But in my case, I always try to just have a positive mindset. If I take everything, then they should not say no. If I speak the language, then they will be nice with me. Because at the end of the day, they're not your friends, they're doing their job. And I always try to be really empathetic with that. I always said, okay, if I'm, in a good mood, and if I kind with them and straightforward, then they will be in the same way with me. So even if it's really something that takes a lot of energy. At the end of the day, it's just paperwork, and it's always all right. At least personally speaking, it's something that I know that I need to do.
So, will you ever be able to get like a citizenship, and how does that work? Is it the amount of years you've stayed, or do you have to get married, or does that affect like do you need to have this pressure on you for the rest of your life if you stay in Vienna? That's my question.
As far as I know, if I'm not mistaken, you can apply to the citizenship after maybe 7 years. But of course, again, you need to fulfill the requirements. You need to have a certain income. You need to have several years of working experience in the country. And even though I'm here with this permit that I have now since a bit more than 6 years, I was not actively working every year. Of course, 2 years just learning the language. And then my first job was in a retail store for other 2 years. Then I made a pause and I was working somewhere else. It was a constant change. So that's why I still don't feel confident enough to go through all this process, and that they would tell me, no, you cannot apply to the citizenship because you don't fulfill the requirements. Eventually, yes, I think that I will definitely take that decision and I will do it. But for now, if I'm secure with my permit and I'm able to stay here with my partner and I can keep working, I don't see why should I just start stressing myself with this if I'm able to stay here legally. Of course, it would be a dream of mine, of course, to apply to the citizenship, because after all this hardship, after all these years, I think that would be kind of like a prize for me. I don't get too emotional about the fact that, oh, I'm not going to be Mexican anymore, because I'm always going to be Mexican. But of course, legally speaking, it will change because you cannot have double nationality, and I will need to give up my Mexican citizenship. And even though it sounds sad, it is, of course. I just think in a cold way, okay, this is something that I need to do to be able to just stay here forever in a way. But as I said, for now, it's something that I'm not planning to do now. If I'm able to work and everything, it's fine. If I feel safe enough, I don't see why I should go through that process yet.
You talk about this like, yeah, of course you will be Mexican for for the rest of your life, and you live in a different culture now, a different country, a different continent, all of that. But what do you do when you miss home? Because I guess there must be times when you miss home, where you miss your family and everything that comes with what you talked about earlier about your childhood and just the place you grew up in.
I think this is really an emotional topic for me because even though I have my partner and we're really happy and I have a really good relationship with his family and I feel loved and welcome and integrated and part of the of his family, it's a constant constant sadness, if I'm honest. Even small things like, waking up in the same house with my dad, with my mom, with my sister, to have a little talk with my mom. When something exciting happens, just the fact that I can just not go and run to my mom, like, Mom, this happens, even though I'm an adult, that's something that I'm always gonna miss. I try to always have a good communication with my parents. We talk every day. I talk every day with my sister. We write each other. But it's a constant sadness of just missing out everything that is happening there. Now that I'm getting older, of course, many new things come to my mind. If I ever have kids, how that dynamic will be. My parents will not be present. And I think before, when I first took the decision, okay, I want to live here, I want to move because I love this person, I was not thinking so much. I think I always tell to my friends and I always tell people when they are planning to move abroad, I'm always telling them, please, please enjoy first the time that you have now with your family. Don't take just a rush decision because I promise you start getting so obsessed and so focused on of your life in the other country that you forget living already, the life that you're having in that moment. And I think that happened to me. I was so focused on, okay, what do I need now? How can I do it? How can I make it happen? That I forgot to enjoy the last moments that I had with my family. And I think that's something that I will always regret because I was constantly, sad and thinking, oh God, I can't wait to be there. So I really think that if I knew that back then, I would have maybe have done it in a different way. Of course, I'm happy with my life here, but I just cannot even describe how hard it is sometimes to just be far away from your loved ones and to know that I'm never gonna have a life with them anymore together. It's just something really hard in terms of family, and of course, in terms of the country itself, that's really something that I cannot compare. The food, the colors, the weather. Yes, I really try to stay positive and to love the lives that I have here. But there are days where I'm really not in the best mood because I'm just missing my country.
No, and I think you say so many important things here. Just the first thing that we often think ahead. We forget to be in the present and enjoy what we have right now. It's easy to just think, as you said, like, yeah, I need to do this, this, this in order to pursue that in a while. But when we are present, we also appreciate things even more. I can just imagine that when you go back to Mexico to visit, the food tastes better, the weather is even nicer, like you maybe even see your country and the places you have known for so long in a different way. Am I right?
Yes, yes. The first thing that comes to my mind when I wake up the first day after traveling, first, I always think that it's a dream. Because even after so many years, sometimes I still wake up and I think it's a dream. And the first thing that I do, I just go outside and I see the blue sky and I'm just blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this sky, I don't see it anywhere else. So these little things, now that when I go back there, I get more emotional. I'm really more empathetic. I have to say, I have lots of empathy for my parents, for the people living in Mexico. I really see how fortunate I am, to be living in a country like Austria. I tend to compare a lot how fortunate the people are in this country, and not in a negative way, but every time I go back, I really see the differences. And yeah, it has a big impact in my life, and I think I'm more aware um, of everything, and I really appreciate even more, where I come from, what my parents did for me, what the country itself is. I think it's something really beautiful, but of course it's also hard because I always feel that I'm between two worlds, and I always say that I think my heart is, always there and here, and it's just something that it's constantly in my mind. But definitely, when I go back, I can enjoy everything in a better way, and it's really beautiful.
But now I'm very curious about, we have been talking about what you dreamt about as a kid. What do you dream about right now?
Well, I think my dreams have changed over time. I think when I was younger, I dreamed about traveling, seeing the world, being an independent woman, mostly having opportunities that my parents didn't have. As I mentioned before, they were quite young and they were always just focusing on working, working, working for me. And when I started being aware of what was going on around me, I realized that, of course, they didn't have anything for themselves. No hobbies, no possibility of traveling, nothing. They were just focusing on me and my sister. So I think growing up, I always thought, oh, I want to have what my parents didn't have, and I want to help them to have a better life. And I think in a way, I think I've already achieved something really important just by moving abroad and supporting myself. I think from my family, I'm the first person in my family that did that. I used to be a bit shy about talking about it because I thought, that's not something so important because people here do it so often. But now I have to say I'm really proud of saying it out loud because I know that it's something that I achieved by myself, also, of course, with the help of my family, of my partner, and many people that love me. But yes, I think my dream now is to have a peaceful life. I think peace is one of the most important things, in my home, that I have the opportunity just to be happy. I think for now, I already achieved my biggest dream that it was to have the life that I have now. And I just want to keep growing and to not never forget where I come from, and just to make my sister and my parents proud.
Now I feel so emotional when
Oh,
you said all of this because just hearing your story, it's such a big step that you dare to, it takes so much courage, and seeing you and also knowing you, and like it is stressful for from time to time. Some days, as you said, you miss home even more, and still you're so proud of, and that you can say that you are proud of yourself. I feel proud of you now when I hear everything, because sometimes it's so difficult to put words on how you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And I think you did it in such a wonderful way. So I'm so happy that you have shared your story.
oh, thank you. You're also making me emotional now. I think this is really something important for me because I tend to not look back because I don't ever want to get sad or to have any negative thoughts. but I think it's really important. I think it's really important to be aware of how much you as a person have achieved. I think when I feel really tired, when there's something going on in my life, I always try to remind myself, you have come so far, you can keep going. And it's not just for me, for people that, that are moving abroad. I think it's for every single person. But of course, my whole chapter coming here was not easy, but I'm still really positive. I still want to achieve more. I still look back proudly, and I think the best thing that I can do now is just to keep enjoying and being thankful for the life that I have.
Like wonderful ending words. Thank you so much, Elisa, for joining us here at Pepe Talk and sharing your story. And yeah, I have no words. That's how I'm feeling right now. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and I'm so happy that I got to share my story with you.
Thank you. And for everyone listening, follow Pepe Talk on Instagram at Pepe Talk. And you can also listen to the podcast now on YouTube where you find the audio. And then you just search Pepe Talk. And otherwise, talk to you next week. Bye bye.